We all know that the dollar is having some problems. There's a lot of countries starting to trade in things other than the dollars. China is trying to make yuan a bigger trade settlement across the world. We see the BRICS countries making headlines all over the place. And that obviously threatens the dollar status in the world as a reserve currency and one that is used for global trade. And it all started with the sanctions against Russia. Whether or not it was good or bad, or you love it or hate it, that started this whole thing because it showed that you can weaponize the global reserve currency and basically kick someone off the global stage if you didn't like them. But at the end of the day, money is a belief system. If you believe something has tons of value, then it's going to have value. If the majority of people don't believe that something has value, it's not going to have any value. And there's been this Elizabeth Warren clip going around of an interview, I guess she did, talking about Bitcoin and not really making too much sense and showing that she doesn't really understand what she's talking about, but here she is talking.
Bitcoin, there's no thing that backs it up. And that's what makes it different. It's just belief. You and I assess. You assess the value is going to go down, I assess it's going to go up, and therefore I buy.
So it's more like this artwork.
So a strong open, right, saying nothing backs Bitcoin, it's just belief, when that's what backs everything. Everything in the world is backed by belief. If everyone thinks Bitcoin has value, it'll have value. If everyone thinks it doesn't, it won't. If everyone thinks Apple stock has value, it'll have value. If everyone thinks it doesn't, it won't. It doesn't matter what it's backed by. And also, she's misjudging this because Bitcoin is backed by an entire network of computers that have the largest computing power on the planet. So that's a pretty good backing in a world where computing power is a loved resource and something that people like to have. It's very valuable in a digital age, and that's what backs Bitcoin. But they go on to talk about or try and compare Bitcoin to art, which doesn't make too much sense.
No, because at the end of the day, I can hang that thing on my wall.
Right.
And I can enjoy it,
But you
or
could
I
sell
can
it.
throw darts at it.
You could sell it for money.
Sure you can. I mean, there are features about it that are the same, but it's not the same.
That comparison to art, hurt a little bit because it doesn't make any sense. Obviously, they're trying to say you could sell art, you could sell Bitcoin. They got to be the same thing, right? When it's not at all. When you talk about money, right? If you forget selling and talk about money, Bitcoin is a global decentralized currency that nobody can control, that nobody can freeze you out of and weaponize against you because there's not one person that controls it. And the dollar is controlled by the US, the yuan is controlled by China, the ruble is controlled by Russia, the rupee is controlled by India. You have all these currencies controlled by central players who, if they wanted to kick you out, they can. We've seen it already happen. So that's what Bitcoin's different. It's not about selling it for money. That is, any asset on the planet you can sell for money. You could sell dollars for other currencies too. So it's not really a comparison to say you could sell it for money.
One of the things we have to remember about, there are a lot of things that come within this crypto world. So for example, we could be talking about, instead of Bitcoin, we could be talking about digital currency. Now that's something very different.
I think that's different too. I buy that. I accept that.
That's right, because that's a government-backed electronic transfer. And it can be denominated in dollars, it could be denominated in euros, it could be denominated in some new language that's made up.
Digital dollars. Oh, who would have thought? I got shocking news here. The dollar is already digital. When you spend money on your debit card or credit card, you are spending digital dollars. When you move money from bank account to bank account, you're moving digital dollars. It's not special. And when she says government backed, that's another way to say government controlled, which nobody should want. You shouldn't want the government to be able to control your money in such a way. Obviously, right now they can control the money supply, issuing new money, printing it, which they're going to have to do till eternity, or, raising rates and doing these things. But under a CBDC, a government-backed, government-controlled currency, you wouldn't have any control. They could simply say you're not allowed to earn interest on your savings account, you have too much money, or they could say you can't buy these certain things because you've spent too many carbon credits this month. It can get extremely dystopian extremely fast.
But that has something that backs it up. It has a government that says if at the end of the day there's a run on this stuff, everybody wants theirs out, the United States government promises there will be something to back it up. And that's what banks are about. There'll be somebody there to back it up. But with Bitcoin, that's not the case.
Somebody will be there to back it up. I mean, tell that to people at SVB who had more than the FDIC insurance, the billionaires who were crying desperately for a bailout, which they got because obviously the billionaires need the bailout. So obviously there isn't someone who's going to back everything unless the right people are involved, unless the elites are involved and the billionaires and the people who have controlling interests can cry to you enough, then they'll get bailed out. But the bank in the middle of Kentucky that only serves farmers who aren't rich, who have $1 million in there, who are over the limit, they're not going to get bailed out. You couldn't care less about them. But again, Bitcoin is backed by the biggest computing network in the world. The most computing power in the world backs Bitcoin. So that's a very strong backing. You don't need a government to back it to do what? Print more? That's the only thing the government can do is print more to bail you out or bail out bad decisions from a bank. So there's two different backings. You'll always be able to go and send your Bitcoin somewhere, sell it to somebody. There doesn't have to be a central point of last resort to print more out of thin air and devalue everyone else who is acting good or acting right in the system. And at the end of the day, Bitcoin, the dollar, any money is a belief system. If people believe in it, it will have value. If people ascribe it value, it will have value. If the majority of people say this is worthless, it'll be worthless. We're seeing things like that happen with the dollar. I mean, even if you want to take that and look at these different types of things on Bitcoin, comparing it to Bitcoin, you can see everything is down against Bitcoin. Obviously, Bitcoin had a massive run in the last decade. It went from worthless to 69,000 back to like 28 right now. But everything that you can see here goes down against Bitcoin. And that could be showing you that there is a growing belief and a stronger belief in Bitcoin than these other assets. And people believe that Bitcoin has value and has more value than these other assets, which is what gives anything on the planet value, is a belief. If the majority of people give something value, it will have that value. If they don't, if they say this thing is worthless, then no one's going to want it. It's always going to be thought of as worthless. And you're seeing the cracks happening in the US dollar. Things like this, like Japan breaks the US allies, buys Russian oil at price above cap. So Japan, in an energy crisis or energy needs, they go to Russia to buy above the cap. They're breaking it. They need this energy, so they'll break the pact, because if they don't, they're probably going to run out of energy. They're probably not going to be able to do heat and everything with electricity that the entire country needs to run. You've got things like India has a new trade policy where they're promoting the rupee. They're trying to break away from the dollar stuff, doing trade in their own currency. And then I think the response from the White House is this here, saying switching to national currencies is a violation of the rights of American citizens. And the White House threatened with sanctions those countries that refuse the dollar in mutual settlements. So that already is weird, right? Like, you can't tell another country that they can't do something because you don't agree with it. Like, who cares? They don't care. It's the belief system in the dollar is crumbling here. It's been weaponized. People aren't liking that. And it's something that people are moving away from now. So even the dollar policy and stuff is more heavy-handed. It's a lot harder for other countries to get their hands on dollars. So that's running all this stuff. Things are getting pretty interesting across the world. And the dollar seems to be the main target that's falling. And also, because we saw the dollar get weaponized and the global reserve currency get weaponized, and people know that that's an option now, people will do that. I don't think they want to let one country control it. I don't think after the dollar falls that people are going to want China to have that control, or India to have that control, or Russia to have that control. So I do think Bitcoin's a solution here that takes longer to play out. You know, maybe we have multiple trading pairs of big currencies around the world, but at some point Bitcoin will become that thing that everyone realizes that can be settled globally at any time that you want instantly and not have to worry about someone controlling it. And it just takes one country to start doing that for the game theory to go in and everything to start to fall into place. That also is going to take a very long time to play out. It's not going to happen next year, in the next 2 years. I mean, maybe if the rate of things are moving, maybe, but it's still like a 10-year thing that could go on, 10 plus, 20 years, 30 years. It's something that could take a longer time to play out. But I think at some point we get there. At some point, we get to a place where nobody wants the global reserve currency to be threatened against them and weaponized against them. And the only way to do that is with a decentralized one that no one controls. But time will tell what happens. We get to see it all play out in real time from here and just see where the pieces fall. That's going to do it for this video. As always, don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe. And I'll see you in my next video.